Several prepared foods sold at Walmart, Kroger, and Trader Joe's are linked to a listeria outbreak. 4 people have died.
Meyer ham and cheese loaf may have been cross-contaminated with under-processed material.
You know what's sitting in grocery store meat cases right now, being sold for your holiday dinners? Ham processed in facilities where USDA inspectors found fecal contamination on the equipment. Deli meat from suppliers that have been cited 47 times for sanitation violations, but kept their contracts because they're 30% cheaper. Ham that tested positive for deadly E. coli, but stayed on shelves for weeks, while executives calculated whether recalls would hurt their stock prices more than lawsuits from dead customers. I'm about to show you documents that prove America's biggest grocery chains are gambling with your family's lives. And by the end of this, you'll understand why that $8 holiday ham might be the most expensive meat you ever buy. 3 weeks ago, I got my hands on a USDA inspection report that made my stomach turn. It was from a meat processing facility that supplies holiday hams to Kroger, Safeway, and Albertsons, stores where millions of families shop. The inspector's notes read like a horror movie. Fecal contamination observed on meat contact surfaces. Rodent droppings found in meat storage areas. Employees observed handling meat products without washing hands after restroom use. But here's what made me dig deeper. This wasn't a one-time violation. This facility had been cited for similar problems 47 times over 2 years. 47 times. And these grocery chains kept buying from them anyway. Why? Because contaminated ham costs 30% less than ham from clean facilities. That's when I realized this wasn't just about one bad supplier. This was about an entire industry that's decided your family's safety is negotiable. So I started pulling recall notices, and what I found will make you never trust a grocery store recall again. Take Costco's ham recall last year. 80,000 pounds contaminated with E. coli, the strain that causes kidney failure in children. Sounds like they acted quickly to protect customers, right? Wrong. Internal emails I obtained through a Freedom of Information Act request show Costco detected the contamination in September, but didn't issue the recall until October. That's 4 weeks of families buying potentially lethal ham, while Costco's recall committee debated whether the financial hit was worth it. And Costco isn't alone. Target knew their Good and Gather deli ham tested positive for listeria, bacteria that kills elderly people and causes miscarriages, but kept selling it for 3 weeks while their legal team assessed liability exposure. 3 weeks of pregnant women and grandparents eating potentially deadly lunch meat because Target was more worried about lawsuits than lives. But wait until you see what I discovered about the company that's supposed to be the premium, safety-focused alternative. Whole Foods charges $18 a pound for ham, markets itself as the healthy choice, and guess what? They had 32 separate food recalls in just 13 months. That's more than 2 recalls every month from the store that's supposed to be setting the safety standard. But here's what really blew my mind. I found internal documents showing Whole Foods spends more money on anti-union surveillance technology than they do on food safety monitoring. They created literal heat maps to track which employees might be discussing unions, using software that costs more than their entire food safety budget. Think about that for a second. The company charging you premium prices for safe food is more concerned about workers organizing than about the ham they're selling you. When I realized that, I knew I had to dig into every major chain. Trader Joe's has built this whole quirky, trustworthy brand, but their contamination record over the past 2 years reads like someone's playing a sick joke. Rocks in frozen meals, insects in snack products, metal fragments in prepared foods, plastic pieces in baked goods. It's like they're collecting contamination types, like trading cards. But the ham contamination is what should terrify you. Their organic ham products, the stuff they market to health-conscious families paying premium prices, have been recalled 3 separate times for salmonella. Same supplier, same contamination, same generic apology each time. Here's what a former Trader Joe's quality control manager told me off the record. We knew the supplier had problems, but switching would have cost us $2.3 million annually. Management decided it was cheaper to deal with occasional recalls than fix the supply chain. They're literally budgeting for your family to get sick. Now, you might think Walmart's contamination problems are just about cutting costs, but what I discovered connects to something much darker. Remember Walmart's aromatherapy spray that killed 2 people because it contained deadly bacteria? That wasn't a fluke. It reveals how Walmart's entire quality control system works. The same inspection failures that allowed killer bacteria into room spray are happening in their meat departments. USDA reports show Walmart ham suppliers with inadequate sanitation, temperature abuse, and cross-contamination between raw and ready-to-eat products. The exact same quality control breakdowns that killed those 2 people are processing the ham you're buying for holiday dinners. When a company's quality control is so broken that deadly bacteria gets into room spray, what makes you think their ham is any safer? But everything I'd found so far was just preparation for what I discovered about Kroger. Internal documents from their recent price gouging lawsuit don't just show them bragging about raising milk and egg prices above inflation levels. They reveal the corporate mentality driving every decision. One email from a Kroger executive literally says, "We can raise prices faster than costs increase, and customers will blame inflation, not us." Another discusses optimizing supplier relationships for maximum margin extraction. That phrase, maximum margin extraction. That's how they think about your food. Not safety, not quality, not your family's health. Maximum margin extraction. So when Kroger chooses ham suppliers, they're not asking, who's the safest? They're asking, who can we extract the maximum margin from? That's why they keep buying from facilities with 47 USDA violations. That's why your holiday ham might come from suppliers that other companies rejected for safety reasons. Target's contamination strategy is even more sinister because of how they market to families. Those weighted blankets that killed 2 young sisters? Target knew they were dangerous, but kept them in the children's section for months. The same calculated risk-taking happens with their ham. Their Good and Gather brand, specifically designed to appeal to families, sources from the same contaminated suppliers as their regular ham, but packages it with family-friendly marketing. Perfect for family dinners. Kid-approved taste, made with families in mind. They're literally using your love for your family to sell you potentially contaminated ham. The more family-focused the marketing, the more likely that product came from a supplier chosen for cost, not safety. But nothing prepared me for what I found about Albertsons. While their stores were dealing with ham recalls, USDA violations, and customer complaints about food safety, company executives paid themselves a $4 billion dividend. $4 billion extracted from a company that's supposed to be ensuring your food is safe to eat. Here's what that $4 billion could have bought. Complete overhaul of their ham supply chain, state-of-the-art safety monitoring systems, premium suppliers with perfect safety records. Instead, it went into executives' pockets while you're left buying ham from facilities that cut corners to maintain profit margins. And now they want to merge with Kroger. The same Kroger caught price gouging and using suppliers with 47 safety violations. Imagine the contamination potential when these 2 companies combine their cost-cutting, profit-maximizing approaches to ham safety. Here's why this holiday season is uniquely dangerous. Every store I've mentioned uses surge suppliers during holidays, facilities they don't normally work with, chosen purely for their ability to meet volume demands, not safety standards. That beautiful spiral-cut ham marked down for holiday sales? It might be cheap because it came from a surge supplier that regular safety-focused companies won't work with. You're not getting a deal. You're getting the ham that safer suppliers couldn't or wouldn't produce. Internal procurement documents I obtained show these companies literally have different safety standards for holiday suppliers. Lower inspection requirements, relaxed contamination thresholds, expedited approval processes. They're gambling that volume sales will offset any contamination lawsuits. Every company I've investigated has the same internal calculation: cost of contamination lawsuits versus cost of safe suppliers. And in every case, they've decided that paying occasional settlements for dead customers is cheaper than buying safe ham. Walmart budgets $50 million annually for food safety lawsuits. Target has a $30 million product liability reserve. Kroger's insurance specifically covers foodborne illness claims. They're not trying to prevent contamination. They're budgeting for it. That $8 spiral cut ham isn't cheap because of holiday sales. It's cheap because someone calculated that the cost of your family getting sick is less than the cost of safe ham. You're not saving money. You're just not paying the full price up front. The real cost gets paid later, in emergency rooms, in missed work, in funerals for elderly relatives who couldn't survive the contamination these companies budgeted for. But the ham contamination is just the tip of the iceberg. When I dug into how these companies treat their workers, manipulate their customers, and extract profits while communities suffer, I realized the contaminated ham is just one symptom of a much larger disease. What I'm about to show you will change how you see every aspect of these stores, from the prices on the shelves to the people serving you. You know that person slicing your deli ham? They might be working in conditions so dangerous that OSHA has fined their employer hundreds of thousands of dollars for safety violations. And those unsafe working conditions directly impact the safety of your food. Take Meijer, the Midwest chain that markets itself as family-friendly. OSHA hit them with over $500,000 in fines for safety violations at their distribution centers. We're talking about workers handling food products in facilities where safety inspectors found serious risk of death or serious physical harm. When the people handling your food are working in life-threatening conditions, what does that tell you about the company's priorities? But it gets worse. Walmart has paid over $3 billion, that's billion with a B, to settle lawsuits related to the opioid crisis. They were literally dispensing addictive drugs to communities while knowing the devastating impact. If they're willing to fuel a drug epidemic for profit, what makes you think they care about the safety of your holiday ham? The connection isn't abstract, it's direct. Companies that treat their workers as disposable and communities as profit centers don't suddenly develop a conscience when it comes to food safety. The same corporate mentality that led to those OSHA violations and opioid settlements is making decisions about your food. Remember those Kroger executives bragging about price gouging? That was just the beginning. I found evidence of systematic pricing manipulation across every major chain that goes far beyond simple inflation. Albertsons has been caught in multiple BOGO deception lawsuits. You know, those buy one, get one free deals that aren't actually free. They raise the price of the first item by more than 100%, then give you the free one. You're not getting a deal. You're getting scammed with math. But here's what really opened my eyes about their pricing strategy. While Albertsons executives were extracting that $4 billion dividend, they were simultaneously raising prices on basic necessities in low-income neighborhoods. Internal documents show they specifically target communities with fewer shopping alternatives, knowing people have no choice but to pay inflated prices. They're literally extracting wealth from the communities that can least afford it while paying themselves billions. That's not business. That's exploitation. Now let's talk about Publix, the southern chain that built its reputation on customer service and community values. Turns out those values include the Publix heiress donating $300,000 to help fund the January 6th rally that led to the Capitol attack. But the political donations are just the surface. Publix has consistently refused to join farm worker protection programs that ensure fair wages and safe working conditions for the people who pick your food. They'd rather buy from suppliers who exploit migrant workers than pay a few cents more for ethically sourced products. When you buy that spiral cut ham from Publix, you're supporting a company that funds political extremism while exploiting the workers who make their profits possible. Those aren't the community values they advertise. Costco markets itself as the ethical warehouse store, but their sourcing practices tell a different story. They've been sued multiple times for selling Franken chicken, poultry pumped with so many growth hormones and antibiotics that it barely resembles natural chicken. But the real scandal is their seafood sourcing. Costco has been caught selling tuna that's not dolphin safe despite their labeling claims, and shrimp harvested using slave labor in Southeast Asia. When confronted with evidence of these practices, their response wasn't to change suppliers. It was to hire better lawyers. If Costco is willing to lie about dolphin safety and use slave labor for their seafood, What corners are they cutting with your holiday ham? The same cost-cutting mentality that leads to slave labor is making decisions about food safety. Earlier I mentioned Whole Foods' anti-union surveillance, but the full scope of their worker monitoring is truly dystopian. They don't just track which employees might be discussing unions. They monitor everything: bathroom breaks, conversation topics, even facial expressions during meetings. Internal documents reveal Whole Foods uses the same surveillance technology that authoritarian governments use to monitor dissidents. They're treating their own employees like enemy combatants while charging you premium prices for conscious capitalism. But here's the connection to your food safety. Employees who are afraid to speak up about working conditions are also afraid to report food safety violations. When workers know they're being monitored and could be fired for any complaint, contaminated food stays on the shelves. That $18 per pound ham isn't expensive because it's safer. It's expensive because you're paying for a surveillance state that keeps workers too scared to protect your health. Target's weighted blanket scandal wasn't an isolated incident. It reveals their entire approach to family marketing. They specifically design products and marketing to appeal to parents' protective instincts, then cut corners on safety to maximize profits. Those Good and Gather products marketed as made with families in mind, they're produced in the same facilities as Target's regular products, with the same cost-cutting suppliers, but sold at premium prices because of family-focused packaging. Target has perfected the art of exploiting parental love for profit. The more a product is marketed to families, the higher the markup and the lower the actual safety standards. They're literally monetizing your love for your children. Here's something that should shock every Trader Joe's customer. When their workers tried to form a union, Trader Joe's sued them for trademark infringement. They claimed workers couldn't use the Trader Joe's name in their union organizing because it violated the company's intellectual property rights. Think about the audacity of that. Workers trying to improve their working conditions, which directly impacts your food safety, and the company sues them for using the company's name. It's like saying workers don't have the right to identify where they work when fighting for better conditions. But this lawsuit reveals Trader Joe's real priorities. They'll spend hundreds of thousands on lawyers to stop workers from organizing, but they won't spend that money on better suppliers or improved safety protocols. They'd rather fight their own employees than fix their contamination problems. Walmart's impact goes far beyond contaminated products. They've perfected a business model that destroys local communities while extracting maximum profit. They move into small towns, undercut local businesses until they close, then raise prices once they've eliminated competition. But here's what's really insidious. They time their price increases to coincide with local business closures. Internal documents show Walmart tracks when the last competing grocery store closes, then immediately raises prices on essential items like milk, bread, and meat. They're not just selling you potentially contaminated ham, they're ensuring you have no choice but to buy it from them. That's not free market capitalism. That's economic warfare against American communities. But everything I've shown you so far is just preparation for the biggest scandal of all. Kroger and Albertsons, two companies with documented histories of price gouging, safety violations, and worker exploitation, want to merge into the largest grocery monopoly in American history. This isn't just about creating a bigger company. Internal documents from the merger proceedings reveal their real plan. Eliminate competition, close redundant stores in low-income areas, and raise prices across the board once they control the market. They're literally planning to create food deserts in communities that can't afford to fight back, while charging monopoly prices for potentially contaminated products. The same executives who extracted $4 billion from Albertsons while cutting safety corners want to control where millions of Americans buy their food. While they're planning this monopoly, both companies have been secretly collecting your biometric data without permission. Kroger, Albertsons, Walmart, and Target have all been sued for scanning customers' faces and fingerprints without consent, then selling that data to third parties. You thought you were just buying groceries, but you were actually being surveilled and having your personal data harvested for profit. The same companies that can't keep bacteria out of your ham are collecting your biometric information and selling it to the highest bidder. And if you think these companies draw the line at endangering babies, think again. Multiple grocery chains have been caught selling baby food with dangerous levels of heavy metals, lead, arsenic, mercury, while knowing about the contamination. Internal emails show executives discussing whether to recall contaminated baby food or ride out the negative publicity. They chose profits over babies' brain development. If they're willing to poison infants for money, your holiday ham safety is definitely not their priority. What I've shown you isn't a collection of isolated incidents. It's a systematic pattern of exploitation that affects every aspect of how these companies operate. They exploit workers, manipulate customers, destroy communities, violate privacy, endanger babies, and contaminate food, all while extracting maximum profits for executives and shareholders. Your contaminated holiday ham isn't a quality control failure. It's the inevitable result of a business model that treats human beings as disposable profit centers. When companies are willing to fund political extremism, use slave labor, poison babies, and destroy communities, food safety becomes just another corner to cut. Those low prices aren't savings. They're externalized costs that you pay in other ways. Higher healthcare costs from contaminated food, destroyed local economies, exploited workers, violated privacy, poisoned children, communities turned into food deserts. You're not getting a deal when you shop at these stores. You're participating in a system that's slowly destroying everything that makes communities livable while enriching executives who see your family's health as a line item on a profit and loss statement. So what can you do this holiday season when the entire grocery industry is gambling with your family's health? First, avoid those spiral cut hams sitting in open display cases. They've been handled multiple times and exposed to contamination. Look for vacuum sealed hams with recent packaging dates. If it was packaged more than 10 days ago, walk away. Watch the deli department. If employees aren't changing gloves between customers or cleaning slicers between products, don't buy anything from that deli. Your family's health isn't worth the convenience. Find local butcher shops and independent grocers. Yes, they cost more up front, but you're already paying the real cost of cheap groceries through healthcare bills and contaminated food. You're just paying it later. Local butchers can tell you exactly where your ham came from and when it arrived. Try getting that transparency from Walmart. Support local businesses with your wallet and your voice. Contact your representatives about the Kroger-Albertsons merger. Two companies with documented price gouging and safety violations want to create a grocery monopoly. Share this information. These companies spend billions on marketing to make you forget their scandals. Don't let them memory hole their crimes. That cheap ham might cost thousands in medical bills if your family gets food poisoning. When you factor in healthcare costs, economic damage, and social destruction, shopping local often costs less long-term. You're just paying the real price up front instead of being surprised later. Cook ham to 145 degrees Fahrenheit internal temperature with a reliable thermometer. Keep receipts and packaging. If someone gets sick, you'll need that information to trace the source and help other families. These companies are terrified of informed consumers. Every time you choose a local butcher over Walmart, every time you demand transparency, every time you vote for strong food safety regulations, they lose power. Before making your holiday shopping list, research local alternatives. Find the butcher shops, independent grocers, farmers markets. It takes more time and costs more upfront, but you're investing in your family's health and community's future. Share this video. The more people who understand what's happening in America's grocery stores, the harder it becomes for these companies to continue their exploitation. Your holiday dinner should be a celebration, not a gamble with your family's health. You shouldn't worry whether your ham was processed with fecal contamination or whether you're supporting companies that exploit workers while funding political extremism. This holiday season, make choices that protect your family and support your community. The power to change this system is in your hands. Use it.